Hi everyone, welcome back to another look at the Lenovo Legion Y740. So I reviewed this model back in May. Now it's been refreshed. This is the late 2000 and, well, actually mid 2019 refresh. So if you want to see the full details, my typical review, which I go into all the details, I go over, for example, the fan noise, the thermals, internals, gaming performance. I test a lot of different games. Then please do check that first video. So this video, I'm only going to cover the changes. And what are those changes? Okay, so I'll just go over the outline of the basic spec of this. So this laptop has 16 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. It has NVIDIA's RTX 2070 Max-Q. So it's got the 8 gigabytes of DDR6 RAM. Performance is really great. This is overall a very good gaming laptop that I reviewed. So it has now a newer screen in it. It's slightly brighter. It's up from 380 lux that I measured on the first model to now 500, slightly over 500, slightly better color gamut as well, as you can see here. These numbers are just a very minor increase here, but the main thing is the brightness here too. So the big change is the CPU. This is going to be my first hands-on with Intel's new Core i7-9750H. So this now has 400 megahertz higher turbo single thread, and then the base clock is also up 400 megahertz. It also has 3 megabytes more cache. So you would seem and think, it would seem that on paper that this is actually going to be a very good increase. It's going to give us a lot more performance. But I want to answer the question that probably a lot of people are asking here. Should I go for the new 9th gen gaming CPU?
So as I pointed out there in front of the camera, that the changes would seem significant, right? You'd think, okay, we've got a single core score now of 400 megahertz higher, and then the base clock is 400 megahertz higher as well. So that's quite an increase. But what it's translating into in real world use isn't really. So this is Geekbench 5. They recently updated it. You can't even download. I can't find Geekbench 4 anywhere to get a similar result. But this is basically only about 4 or 5% faster than the previous model, the Core i7-8750H. So for me, this is such a disappointing increase. I mean, Intel talk about their tick-tock system, and this is one of those ticks. This is hardly really much of a gain at all. The integrated GPU that is in here is exactly the same as the previous generation. The architecture is the same 6 cores, the same 12 threads. It's just those higher clocks. That is really the only difference. And of course, integrated graphics is disabled. Now, when I take a look at Cinebench R20, okay, we are up a huge, wait for it, 13 points. That is the difference between the Legion Y740, the first model I reviewed, with basically the exact same spec apart from the CPU. So we are gaining basically nothing here. It pulls through to be exactly the same here with Cinebench R15. So there's a very similar trend here. This is why I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. I'm not going to re-benchmark everything again, because really there's just absolutely no point to me in doing this. And when you do take a look at the CPU, Lenovo has the same power limit. So the Turbo Boost Short Max Power, which is power limit 1, I believe it is 90 watts. And then the 60 watts we get for power limit 2, which is the longer power limit. So this is exactly the same as the first model I reviewed. No changes here whatsoever. And this is a very good power limit because other manufacturers are setting slightly less here. And this is why we will see the thermals. They still do, unfortunately, peak up, but it's only for a split second. It's normally only for a couple of seconds. You will see it right now getting up to 95 is the max. I am running HW info, which is in the background right here. So I'll quickly bring that up just to show you that you can see that it will turbo up to, well, 4.3. Seems to be all I'm getting here, but the max is 4.5 and then 96. So 96 is actually the exact same figure that I got with thermals on the first model I reviewed. So no changes there. And when you're holding the 6 cores all taxed, for example, with Cinebench, you do get the 4 gigahertz, as you can just see down here, across all of those cores. But it depends on what you're doing. That was Cinebench R15, but when I then benchmarked Cinebench R20, it then hovered around about the 3.6 mark. So it's a little bit lower there. So that's why we're not really gaining too much here with the same exact architecture. Just the higher clocks make it look good on paper. So again, with the intentions of keeping this video as short as possible, this is a quick gaming benchmark. This is Shadow of Tomb Raider. Now I tested this with the first model that I reviewed with the exact same configuration apart from the newer screen and now the newer CPU. So what are we actually gaining? Average frames per second. Wait for it. 3 frames per second versus the Core i7-8750H. That is all we're gaining, 3 frames per second on average, because on the older spec that I reviewed, it got 80 average frames per second, so barely any performance gains at all here.
Cooling is exactly the same, so it peaks to 96 degrees briefly, which is exactly like the first model I reviewed, no changes there whatsoever. It's not good to see, but it's only for a few seconds, and when you're gaming continually, the temperatures do settle. They're in the mid-80s, fan noise is acceptable, the performance of this laptop is really, really good. As you'll see from the first video, that it games really well, and the cooling, I think, what they've done, because they are using the higher 90 watts, they're boosting their performance versus the competitors. And the performance, let's talk about the main upgrades here. So I'll focus on the screen. It is better, it is brighter. We're getting slightly better color gamut. It still has the 144 Hertz, but the additional 120 lux we're gaining, definitely take it. So the CPU, this is where Intel really disappoints. This is my first hands-on here with the 9th gen. Now with the i7-9750 and it's just not an improvement really at all worthwhile. Your money, your time, and I don't even know why Intel did this. We have the same architecture. It's got the same 6 cores, 12 threads. It has 3 megabytes more on the cache there, but the performance difference, as you saw, Cinebench R20 for an example there, only up 13 points. That's it. With the same exact power limit, the same cooling, this is a good way to gauge what we're really gaining. Nothing. In games, you're gaining really nothing. 3 frames per second on average higher with the highest settings, with the RTX features on, with Shadow of Tomb Raider, 3 frames per second average, completely not worth it. So, end of the day, if you get this model, if you can see it, you see it with the 8th gen CPU and it's cheaper, buy it. Okay, it's just not worth the extra money. If it's 100 US more, 200 US more for a brighter screen and 4% or 3% more performance, absolutely not worth it. The screen is still bright enough in the old model to be perfectly fine. It's a matte coated screen, it's still 144 Hertz. It still has, for a gaming laptop, very good color coverage. The color space, color gamut is great. It's great for a gaming laptop. So overall, my opinion hasn't changed with this laptop. With the refresh now, that the main change is the screen. It is still a great gaming laptop. It has good thermals, good fan noise. Yes, okay, as mentioned, it peaks to 96, and it's just those minor complaints. So what about the little bug that I encountered plugging in an external monitor? Does it dim the screen now? In my cases now, I don't know whether it's NVIDIA's drivers or the BIOS updates, it's not doing it anymore. So that's one con that I had from the previous model that has been fixed, which is really great to see. So thank you so much for watching this re-review, you could say, or follow-up of the refresh of the Legion Y740 from Lenovo.